You can watch us on YouTube at Falls Area Community Government, or Twitter at FactTV8, or Facebook by typing in Falls Area Community TV. Fact TV Government Channel, keeping government honest. You can watch us on YouTube at Falls Area Community Government, or Twitter at FactTV8, or Facebook by typing in
Village Trustees regular meeting. It's Tuesday. Excuse me? Oh, I'm sorry. Welcome to the Bellows Falls Village Trustees regular meeting. I hadn't hit the button all the way. It's Tuesday, January 26, 2021. We're down here in the lower theater at 6:01. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And we need to approve the minutes, first off, of Tuesday, January 12th, 2021, and December. I'd like to add the December 22nd, 2020 minutes to that as well. It wasn't on the agenda, but we had asked for them. I did get a copy, digital copy. I reviewed it. Has anyone been able to review the minutes? Okay. Jiggs, did you get the 2020 minutes?
I did, and I did review them.
Okay. So I'm certain you probably haven't had the opportunity because of work. So, okay. So, we'd like to do these together. Motion, please, for these
Motion to
minutes.
approve the minutes from the 2022 meeting.
And the
and
January
the
12th,
January 12th, 2021.
21. Yep. Need a second?
I'll second that.
All right. Any discussion on the minutes? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you, Jigs. Minutes are approved. Next item, additions to the agenda for routine administrative matters and/or pressing matters that will require ratification at a future meeting. Is there anything, Scott?
No, I thought, I'm sorry, we could actually hear. We might have something coming for a future meeting to discuss on the assistance to firefighter grant, but it appears if anything, it'll just be informational. We don't need a full resolution of support, so
Okay.
we'll have that on your agenda. It just won't require an action for that.
All right. Great. Thank you very much. All right. Then any public comment? I don't see anyone out there, actually. Therefore, moving
I
on.
don't see any either.
Okay, I didn't see any other blocks up there, so I figured there wasn't anyone else. So, moving on to the manager's report then.
Thank you. Just a couple of update items here. The last time we met jointly, we had discussed a little bit about the state's retail cannabis option, local option, and we're still waiting to get some guidance from this current legislature session. I think that the piece of information that's still important for us to consider is if there's going to be something in the future, is that at the moment, the way that these establishments are being set up, only communities that currently have the local option sales tax will actually then be allowed to collect, the additional revenues. So in our area, I think Brattleboro has it. They got it in 2019. I think Winooski also got it in 2019. There's about, I think, 20 or 21 communities that currently have that.
Okay.
We are not in that list of current communities. So as we go forward and people want to have those conversations, I think one of the key questions is going to be, it won't provide, at least from a sales tax standpoint, any additional revenues if you're hosting a facility. It's just something that we'll have to keep an eye on, be aware of. And as we go forward, if you want to get into that in greater detail, we can certainly talk about options and how we might want to proceed with that. But at least wanted to continue to bring that to the board's attention. It doesn't appear that there's going to be any authorizing legislation at the state level to expand that beyond the local option that's currently existing. So that seems, I'm sorry, Jeff. Right now it's 1%.
Okay.
And again, as this goes forward and we get better information as this develops through the state, we'll certainly try to keep the board informed. I just wanted to give you that update because we did talk about it back in December, and it's working its way through a legislative process currently.
Okay.
Another item that came up from a previous conversation that we just wanted to give you just a quick update on, we had discussed about snow removal and supplementing the town with some of our folks from the water department and the sewer department. Shannon ran a payroll. So basically we looked at all the payrolls, and this is only for the current year, that started in November, ended at the last pay period of the 26th of January. So it's not the full year, but just to give you an idea of the snapshot. So in the water department, 2 of our employees have worked overtime, a total of 15 hours, and it's a total of $469 to date. And then in the sewer department, we've also had 2 employees that have worked, I'm sorry, 3 employees that have worked overtime. That was 9.5 hours, and that was $254. So we don't have a significant amount of overlap. It doesn't impact us operationally. Those are line items that are attributed to specific budget codes. So that's maintained within our financial system. But just wanted to give you that update because that had come up as a conversation, and Deb had actually asked if she could just get some update for the board. So just wanted to give you that information.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for getting that. Let's see. On the agenda, we have Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust update. And I believe this is just informational from Scott as they are moving along, and just make sure the trustees are aware since it is in the village.
Right. So what I've asked is Peter Paggi, who is one of the principals that's working on this project. They do have a fairly large resubmission from the package that you saw previously. There's quite a few items that I think were removed from the project due to cost. And a lot of that related to the condition of the building, trying to support additional weight through the structure. And then they took bids, and the bids came back, I guess, 30 or 40% higher than budget. So they had to go back, do some value engineering. My understanding is they're pretty close to finish with that. I've asked Peter if there's a way that he could do a presentation or an update for both boards. So both boards would get a chance to sort of see what the revised building proposal is, as well as then there'll be a package that'll go back through DRB for approval. You know, there are some impacts that were not in the original proposal. For example, we've lost parking on that site. So that'll have to be part of the conversation as to, you know, where you would consider replacement parking might go. Because obviously if you're going to develop 27 units in today's environment, there's going to be cars. I think we're all aware, even in the subsidized project. So we're working on a date where we might be able to do that and have that available, have conversations. So prior to, we can share information with both boards and then have an opportunity to do Zoom so that everybody would have a further opportunity to at least gauge where they are, get some input, and then go through, again, there has to be a permitting process for that to continue to go forward. So we don't have a commitment yet, a firm commitment on a date. We're working on some dates in February, so we'll certainly let you know.
Okay.
So nothing is imminent. They will, like I said, they have to go back through a permitting process. They're not looking at starting construction, obviously, until after the winter. They want to get through, sort of a public process, a design review, and then hopefully have a project that everybody agrees with and everybody's satisfied, and then we start sometime in the summer as we go forward. So
I had asked for this because they had a Zoom meeting that they did not invite everyone to. I know you were on it and I was on it. But yeah, it was made public, but didn't necessarily direct trustees to get it. I got an invitation. I don't know, you may have as well, but everyone doesn't have an opportunity during the day to do that. And they were supposed to present to the select board that evening, I think.
right.
And they weren't able to do that. That was
Right.
Monday. And they were not the Monday that the select board had to reschedule. And so that didn't happen for them, for the select board. And I wanted to make sure that we're all being kept in the loop. And I thought the easiest way to do that would be to get update from you,
Right.
which is appropriate.
But-
So,
They've committed to, I think, doing a more inclusive process. They understand it's an important, development for impacts on our downtown, impacts on the community, and I think they want to make sure that we're all on the same page. So
right.
I
Right.
think we'll have something hopefully for fairly soon.
Okay. Does anyone have any other questions on that?
Deb,
Oh,
I believe I received an email the other day that said there was going to be another presentation, Zoom presentation. I think it was February 4th.
yes, something like that.
Okay.
Right. I believe I did get that. I
Okay.
wasn't sure. I have to double check, but I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I
you're
just
right.
was going to follow with Peter to make sure that we can do it at a time that's convenient for,
As many as possible.
yeah.
And Wade had a question.
No, the manager, he answered it.
Okay.
Yep.
Thanks.
So go back. That. All right, then. We move on to the Westminster Terrace sidewalk crosswalk issue. I can't remember who asked to have this on the
Wade
agenda.
did.
Oh,
I
it was
did.
Wade. Okay.
It was just basically a follow-up. I just did catch a piece of the last select board meeting where I think it was one of the select board members talked about the crosswalk, moving it from where it is now down to the next Westminster Terrace.
Mhm.
Obviously not now, but
in the spring
Yeah.
or summer.
So I just wanted to follow up on it, saying it was funny because I remember them talking about it, and then a couple days later, I actually dawned on me when I went by. I looked at it, which to me it would make sense. But
Okay.
what made me think about it more was while I was doing that, there was a couple people walking down the hill from Westminster Terrace along the rail up there,
Mhm.
the sidewalk,
Right.
and the sidewalk wasn't plowed. They were walking out in the street.
Yep.
So I didn't know. And then, of course, they get down there and there's crosswalks over here. But then I looked at the map you gave us a
Right.
couple weeks ago. I was trying to figure out if that was one that was on there to be plowed or not. So I wasn't sure. So I'm just pointing that out, that maybe it's not. I don't know. I couldn't tell from my map.
I think the one side is cleared, and the other side, I think where they were walking is not necessarily cleared. And sometimes because of the way they push the snow, that corner gets built up. That seems to be part of the issue. So I think there's probably a couple things we got to look at for that. I'll go back and pull the original. Obviously, they had a permit when they did all of their original work there on the credit union. I'm sure they must have had some traffic engineering work done for the exits and the entrances in that building there in the corner in the intersection. So I think before we decide that we want to move the crosswalk, I'll go back and pull the original traffic engineering work, make sure that we're all sort of on the same page. And then if we want to make a modification, I think there's ways that we probably can do some things there to enhance the visibility as well of anything. If you move it farther away from the intersection, I think the concern is kind of like we have on Rockingham and School Street, where it's somewhat out of the norm for drivers. They don't pay attention and people get in that crosswalk. And sometimes, we get reports quite a bit that people just blow through and don't pay attention. And so we have to be very careful. That location especially, it's another one where people are just going to not necessarily be looking for pedestrians there. And we want to make sure we create something that's safe.
Is the bus stop still there? There used to be a bus stop at the bottom of there.
I don't know.
Before, it was right there. It was at the end of the gas station area. I haven't paid attention to see if the bus stop is still in the same place now that the credit union is in there.
There's a sign, but I don't know if I've never seen a bus stop there. Right. So I can check with them to see if there's been a route change. Sometimes they'll change routes and not update their signage accordingly. So,
but I could be wrong on this, but I think on the hill part of Westminster Terrace that I'm thinking of, I think there's only a sidewalk on the one side.
One side.
Going up on the left. I don't believe there's a sidewalk on the other
On
side.
the right side. Where?
Okay. Well, anyway, I just wanted to throw that out there that I thought, at least quick glance following up on what Peter had said, it looked like it would make sense to.
Yeah. The other thing, and I think it's a good segue, again, because, we're trying to maximize as many of these grant opportunities. We had talked earlier about the Assistance to Firefighter Grant. We put in the Better Connections Grant last week for the potential Memorial Park development upgrades down here at the old fire or at the Star Hotel site from the fire. There's another VT Trans small scale bike and pedestrian grant. I mean, these things are always long titles, but basically it's it's only up to $5,000 to $75,000. It's a 50% local match. And what I was thinking was trying to upgrade our warning signal to make something higher visibility at the intersections of Rockingham and School, and then taking those, which are flashing and somewhat less visible pedestrians, possibly moving those up to that other location where they might have some visibility up there to help with pedestrians at the credit union site. So some of the ones that I'm looking at, are solar powered. They have lights, so they also can help when, we're in these darker days in the winter time when it's dark in the afternoon, that type of thing. That intersection has generated quite a few complaints, not just from elected officials, folks that are walking kids to and from school, but also I met with the school principal, and that's a real concern for the staff there as well. So I think that intersection needs some enhancement and some improvement, trying to increase the visibility there as much as possible to get people to understand that that's a school zone, four-way stop, and you got to stop and pay attention to people in those crosswalks. So we're going to work on getting a grant for that and see if we can get some money to help offset those costs. Some of these units that I'm looking at are, $15,000 to $20,000 a piece. They also have the ability to record data, which is somewhat helpful. So you can get direction of travel. You can get some speed and volume data. It doesn't do cameras, so it's not going to take, that type of
Right.
Like a
data, but it'll
snapshot.
give you some general data that you can work with. So as opposed to doing speed studies all the time, we'll have some ongoing data on that intersection as well. So
And you're talking about the one down by 66 Atkinson?
yes,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's there was a blow through today. Apparently there was this morning, and apparently there was an officer happened to be there when Cass was doing crossing. So, and they're not all the time. And
No.
usually it's in the afternoon more than the morning, but that's a dangerous intersection.
it's right. It's just something we'll have to try to. And again, I think some of these options that I'm looking at will make it more visible. Give it I think as much digital enhancement as we can give it. And then I think we can take some of the equipment that's there and try to relocate it and reuse it in that other spot if we want to make improvements there as well. So
Could we put a rumble spot on each side of the road on either side of it so that it slows people down?
it's probably marginally effective, I'd say. And I think a lot of times people are distracted. It's sort of, again, it's that mid-block thing where people aren't paying attention.
Yeah.
And that's, inevitably that's where they end up blowing through these
Yeah,
intersections.
you do see a lot more of that in New Hampshire. I mean, it helps in some areas, but whether or not it would be effective on basically Route 5. If you're looking at Atkinson Street, you're looking at Route 5. Whether that's effective there or not, I don't know. I mean, it's been a problem for quite some time. So
I think enhancements can only help. I
Mhm.
mean, some of it is bad behavior that I'm not sure,
anything would help.
we can
Right.
correct all the bad behavior, but I
Yeah.
think as much as we can warn people, make it, visible, try to light it is the best, better than it is now. I think it'll all be positive.
Okay.
And we'll apply for the grant, see if we can, get some help with the equipment as well, which is never a bad thing. So
Good.
I am. Thanks.
All right. Anyone else have any comments about? That
I think
location?
the other thing Wade had asked for
Yeah.
was some, that's later, I think. Never mind. Okay.
That's okay.
No, go ahead. Because it's the next item,
Now
so-
we're on to the third item, which is the status report on a traffic study. I know that this is one that Chuck had talked about, and I don't know where it got, so.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. There were various locations.
Well, can I just say something there?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I had asked to put this on here because I remember that not too long after the two of us got on the board, weren't too awful long after that, this was being done.
Mm-hmm.
And then it kind of went away and we never
Right, we
really
didn't
heard,
hear anything else.
never heard the
Yep.
end result of any of this study. So that's, I was just curious if it ever got completed or where
Yeah,
it
see,
stood or.
At the beginning of COVID, I remember Chuck talking about wanting to do this because the law enforcement wasn't allowed initially because of the pandemic to stop speeders, but they were still continuing to be speeding, and maybe some of it even got worse in the intervening months because it kind of got around, or people understood that there was no one stopping them, so they were doing a study, but we never heard the results of it. So this
Right.
is-
So these,
so I'm assuming Jacobs doesn't have this.
right, I'll send him a copy
Okay.
electronically and make
this
sure he's
point.
up to date as well.
And so what are they talking about 85th percentile
So
speed?
normally when traffic engineers look at all the data, right? So they collect the tube data and they look at all of the different, they aggregate the data. What they're looking for is the 85th, what speed is at 85% of the time. That's what they're looking for. That's what they consider to be the average. They don't take the 50th percent. They don't take the median. They take the 85th percentile. So in this case, you can see the 85th percentile is 20, in various locations, right? It goes up and down depending upon where you are. What you're looking for are things, significantly above the posted speed limit to the point where there's a significant problem with speed. There are some issues with speed. I think Old Terrace had probably the highest when you
Yep.
look at our numbers there. The others aren't terribly over. There are some places, and again, I gave this to the police department, so this will be something that when they are going out in the community, it's something they can look at in terms of places to try to direct officers for enforcement.
Mhm.
The other problem that you always have with these is, right, these are snapshots in time. So I think you take 2 or 3 weeks worth of data from one, period of time, and then it changes over time because people's traffic habits change. Obviously, our travel patterns during COVID are different. So these were taken I believe last summer.
Yeah.
So, I'm not 100% sure that this is 100% accurate in terms of if we get back to a non-pandemic type of travel and people are back to going to work and school in a normal way. These numbers might look different, so we'll hold on to possibly redoing this. If we're further along this summer and we feel like it would give us a better better look, then we'll try to reproduce it and see, if the numbers change, just based on, people leaving their house more and not being in quarantine. But
Let's see. Old Terrace is Red Light Hill, right? Is that
Yeah,
correct?
Old
Okay.
Terrace.
Yeah, just want to be
up by the-
sure.
Yeah, up by the cemetery.
Yeah, and my concern here is look at the Old Terrace at Westminster and the Westminster Street at the library. Both of those locations have a light, a sign indicating their speed limit. It's supposed to be 25, and they're clearly doing higher than that. And I've seen speeds a lot higher than 31, 32 degrees. So
yeah, I mean, there's always outliers when they do these,
Right.
right? There are, some people are going 40, some people are again, this is just giving you that 85th percentile.
Oh, and I
So-
understand that, but we already knew there was a problem with those two locations because they both have lighted speed signs, which people are clearly going over, which is the reason why they were installed in the first place.
It's
And
supposed
they're
to be a
still
visual
doing
warning.
that.
I know.
Yeah.
Madam President,
you
if
had
I
a
may.
question. Yep.
No, I don't have a comment.
Okay.
The lighted speed sign down by the library has been dysfunctional because it has not been lit all the time. And I believe the one
Right.
on the north end is not even working
Same. Yes, it hasn't been working.
for
They need
quite some
repair.
time.
Mhm.
Yeah, having those operating is a benefit, I think. I think people pay more attention.
I'll check and see.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
if need to change batteries or,
Whatever is wrong with
Right.
them, and I think the one up by the
Well, I believe they're
Cemetery.
hardwired.
has been, but that one's been a problem off and on for a while. The further one that's up heading out to Sackers River.
okay.
So my only other question on this is, because Scott understands this better than I do. It says percentage 31 miles per hour plus.
Over 31, right?
Oh, that's over 31?
Correct.
I was just curious why it was 31 and like not 30 or something.
I think they're
Yeah.
looking for somebody who's, what is that, 20% over the posted speed limit roughly? in
Oh,
that
okay.
neighborhood.
That's why it's 31.
And then they're looking at, right, people that are above that. So that, again, it just gives you an indication as
Right.
to where you're seeing probably your more significant speed.
No.
So, we'll
Well-
use it as an enforcement tool. I will do some follow-up and report back to you guys on the status of the speed signs. So we'll make sure we get those things functioning. And then I think that, if we're at a pretty good place and we think that we're going to be back to somewhat normal by July or August, it might be worth doing a repeat and seeing what the numbers look like at that point.
Great. Did you have anything else, Wade?
No, thank you.
Jeff, did you have anything on that? Thank you. Yeah, getting those signs fixed would help the speed, I suppose, too, so.
Yep.
Hopefully. I mean, that's their intention. We're not big cities, so we're not taking snapshots of them as they go by.
Oh, you can listen. You can get some stuff that does all
I know.
sorts of stuff. Yeah, but like anything, right? The more complicated it is, it's out in the weather.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys know how well things operate in the cold and the heat.
Yeah, not well.
So,
Okay, so the next item is the unsafe buildings. I just wanted to see if we're still in the same spot with 66 Atkinson. 9 Barker was on the lily pad list that the company, the partnership that wanted to work on properties, and they dropped this one. I know that there are also other unsafe buildings, but it is a tool that we have to try and get homeowners to move forward on things. So we should use it. Not that we necessarily have millions of dollars to handle these properties ourselves, but to encourage them to come to some kind of compliance and a program or a schedule of repair. So where are we on 66
So
Atkinson Street?
66 Atkinson, there's a couple of actions that are taking place. First of all, back in October, I'm not sure if the board got the full motion for summary judgment from the attorney. Our attorney had sent in information just to the owner because we were trying to get some legal compliance with all of the various orders that had been placed on the property for the unsafe condition. Checked with the attorneys this week. There has been no action on that since October. It was filed, I believe, towards the middle of October of last year. The court calendars aren't moving, as you can imagine, quickly. So there is a proposed calendar for this.
Mhm.
So that item is still out there without any real idea of when the court might act upon it. The second piece of 66 Atkinson is Gary has been working with a group of people from the Incremental Development Alliance to look at options for that property that might be redeveloped and possibly then be able to do some of the environmental work that's necessary because there are some environmental concerns for that building, and then ultimately see if that would be eligible for some grants, and then the ability for somebody to come in there and do a reuse. They were talking about something with childcare and educational kind of focus since it's so close to the school and it's some, pretty high profile.
We're talking about the property,
location.
not the building itself. Right?
Talking more about the property.
Yeah.
The building itself, I think, is probably at a point where I'm not so sure unless you're just going to do it as a giant hole that you want to throw money into. I'm not sure that renovating that building is going to be in anybody's, at least not that we're aware of. Any private interest has come along, has said that they could make a go of it. So it's sort of stuck in that, it's not, the private sector really doesn't have an interest in it. The public sector is moving a little slower because there's concerns about environmental hazards. And you guys know that once you get into once you have knowledge and if God forbid you have some sort of ownership or title, you have to take responsibility and do cleanup. And the numbers for those types of projects can be large. So it's got some momentum. It's not great momentum, but it's kind of moving in a slow pace.
Okay. No, and nothing from the owner himself. So
Very little communication with the owner.
Okay.
Deb,
yes, Jigs.
I noticed on our 6-month financials, we've spent $4,180 on this property. So clearly, I'm sure that's legal fees. But if the motion is going nowhere, it's kind of discouraging to see that money being spent.
They are leaned against the property, are they not?
That will become part of a lien. Again, it's going to be a long process to get anybody to satisfy anything that we do put against the property and then ultimately come up with a reuse. So
Right.
I don't disagree. It's a little frustrating. COVID hasn't made it better, but that's where we are.
Yeah.
So at least wanted to give you guys
Is
an
the
update.
property also delinquent tax-wise?
It is delinquent, but I think they're just now approaching after this collection. We'll see if they pay anything on this collection. At that point, I think they'll be, 2 years, I believe.
2 years out.
So, yeah.
Okay. Anything else on this property? Anyone?
You guys got any buyers? Anybody interested? I thought maybe that's why you
Oh,
wanted
yeah.
to talk about it.
Deep pockets, yeah, no.
Every time I go by there, I look up at that roof.
I know, because you're expecting it's just
Um,
gonna,
And the chimney.
Every snowstorm, I think this
I
might
know.
be it.
Yeah.
This could
That's
be
where
the
exactly
one.
where I'm headed right after
I
this meeting to
understand.
take a look at it as the
I
snow's
do the
coming
same
down.
thing. I drive by it every night and look at it.
Jesus.
Think the same thing.
Let's see, moving on to 9 Barker Street then.
Yeah, so there was some interest in that property from the developer that we had discussed back in the joint meeting. It turned out that there was some issues that they couldn't satisfy. They were trying to get a contractor in there to look at demo and to do some other things with the property to see if it was viable. Apparently, the contractor that was coming in to look at the environmental issues had some licensing problems. So they weren't, I guess, licensed to actually then do the work that they were saying they were going to provide. So that project sort of was put on hold. That private entity is looking at a couple other projects in town that are properties that will be valuable to the community to have them renovated, but 9 Barker is not on that list. So we're in a holding pattern with that one as well. Again, if there's I caution, I guess, as we go forward, because there's a concern that there might be a longer term environmental issue in that property as well. And again, if we get into that title, we'll have a responsibility and a large bill for cleanup. So,
And of course, I'm certainly not interested in doing that, but I do believe that the unsafe building ordinance is a tool for us to contact the owner and ask them, or owners, and ask them to come forward and give us an idea or write in writing a plan of what they intend to do with some kind of a schedule for progress.
yeah,
I
since
mean, it's
this
worth
last
knowing.
initiative sort of fell apart in mid-January, I'll reach out to them and see if we can get them to give us some indication as to what they're considering to do next. And I'll follow up with you guys on that as well.
Okay.
Was that an insured property? You know?
I don't know.
It was at the time of the fire, I heard that it was not insured.
That's what I thought.
That's what I thought too.
Yeah, I don't know that for a fact, but
It's not insured.
Okay.
If it had been, we'd have seen a lot of changes by now. So I think at least, yeah, at least that. And I realize that there are other buildings in the community that also need some attention. And and us trustees, you've probably been approached by some individuals who say, why aren't we doing something with such and such, just like the Atkinson Street property. We don't own them. All we have is the tool of reaching out to them via the unsafe building ordinance and asking them to come forward and help us understand what's going on. If there are any grants or anywhere we can point them at that will allow them to get some assistance or help, there's always that. So if anyone here has any other items for unsafe building that they would like to have added, just let us know. Because reaching out to an owner to see where they are with it is giving us an opportunity to make sure the community feels better that they are moving forward and things are happening, instead of a very friable building like the Barker Street property, which is a problem for the entire neighborhood down there. And now that Lily Pad has not been able to pick them up, what will happen next, and when will something happen next? Okay, that was all I had on the unsafe building issue. If we want, we can move forward to the year-to-date financials.
Great.
Sorry, were you all set?
No,
Stephanie?
we're good.
Okay.
All set? Okay.
So moving on to number 5.
Shannon, are you there?
I am.
Great. I know that we had talked about, this is our 6-month review. We have some journal entries that we have to make that relate to some expense items that are related to the Elger grant, as well as, I think, some other grants that were received. So they're not going to be reflected in the 6-month. Shannon and I are going to try to get those resolved this week. She's been doing W-2s and trying to clean up some of the requirements. We have to have those out, obviously, by the end of January. So I think we were finally hopefully done with those, I think, today. And so now that'll be the next item on her finance plate. So with that in mind, Shannon, do you want to just give a quick overview of where we are and a couple highlights?
Sure, absolutely. So When we get the fourth quarter school billing, we will make entries to the taxes. So you are not receiving anything over and above the taxes for the year. So you'll be at 100%. But we do anticipate collecting all but probably about 10,000 by the time we're done the year. In any department, police, fire, or the general, as well as water and wastewater, we're still projecting to come in far under budget. Line by line, we may not be, but as a whole, we will come in under budget. But I'll take any questions you guys have.
Well, I wanted to point out a couple items, and then I'll let members of the board jump in. The couple items that we know are going to be out of whack and that we're still trying to work through. If you notice in our page 3, we're looking at our legal fees, especially as they relate to union negotiations. As you know, the board's aware, we've had conversations. We're in mediation currently with our police union, and you can see that based on the extent of the work and where we are currently, that line is over, and we are still in negotiations. We're sort of at a point where we'll let you know as we proceed, but I would anticipate that we'll have more money that we'll have to spend in that as we go forward if we're not successful and reach an agreement. So
I did want to make sure that we will have it does say at the bottom of the agenda, a brief executive session to just talk about the union place where we are right now.
So that was one item. There's a second item that's been a point of concern in our water and sewer utility billing, and that's been our relationships with the 2 districts that we sent up in Westminster. We've been discussing in the ordinance committee that we might need to update those agreements. One of the agreements was a 1982 agreement. The second agreement was a 1997 agreement. So it does end up showing in our current statements that there's monies owed, and it throws out of whack our revenues because they don't come in on a timely basis. So we're looking at options where we can try to basically do the billing for those customers like we would do any other customer within the water system, which means we probably have to go back and do in the sewer system, do some modifications, give us the ability to age accounts and apply penalty and interest if accounts are not brought current like we do with other customers. So that conversation will take place through the ordinance committee, and then we'll come back to the full board at some point here, probably fairly soon, with a larger scale update to the ordinance that will incorporate that, as well as then have to have conversations with our neighbors as to how we'd like to go forward with that. So
I will say that district number 5 did make a payment this month. So it's not reflective in the 6-month financials, but it will be in January's.
right.
Woohoo!
Is that for the sewer or the water?
That is what we bill district number 5 for.
You know,
I believe the water is.
I think that's water.
that's water, I think.
Is that-
And so we bill them in whole, and then they bill their customers and then pay us. So we did receive a payment for
Okay.
their.
But it's not in here yet.
No,
Okay.
so it's not reflective. So it's that's going to be somewhat of an offset. So we do have some offsets that are not reflected in your statements, but just wanted to give you just that brief update. So now we'll certainly entertain any questions or concerns from the board.
Okay. Questions on the budget?
I have a quick, just staying right on what we were just talking about.
Yes.
District number 5, that's Gageville?
One is Northern Westchester, Gageville, and the other one is, or Westchester.
Chester.
Westminster. Jesus Christ, I'm going back to New York.
Yeah.
Westminster, my apologies.
One is North Westminster, Gageville.
right.
Okay.
Right. Well, no, so district,
Trying to figure out what District 5 is exactly, because there's not on on our paperwork here that we're looking at the water fund or the wastewater fund, it doesn't say District 5.
So
So-
I can get you guys those contracts and send them to you so you can read through them.
Yeah, just trying to figure out what budget line, what account line we're looking for and
I
the
think-
revenue on those. On
I
5.
think one of the things that Shannon and I talked about doing is making them possibly specific line items so that you
Yep.
can see it in the revenues and then the receivables so that
Okay.
it's more clear. Because we have the 2 billings that we do. So we'll try to do that, break that out, because I think right now it's confusing as to how that comes in. I think it comes in as intergovernmental and it's broken back out against the funds.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
And I thought, isn't Kissel Hill in that area up there a different district
yes.
Yes.
It is.
than the Gate North Westminster?
Correct.
So
There's 2.
I'm actually specifically speaking to the wastewater for sewer user North Westminster for the 45,000. So we bill them twice a year and we got the first payment.
Oh, okay.
Thanks.
Which will be reflected the next time we see a financial.
Right.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yep.
Thank
That's the sewer. That's the sewer, right? Yeah.
Sewer. Yeah, sewer.
I guess the other thing that we should point out in the sewer fee, and I apologize, I forgot to mention it earlier. If you guys look at page 13, if you look at the septage, it's
Yeah.
a revenue account. You can see that to budget for the 6-month period, we're at 95% of budget
Already. Yep.
So that's a continuation, again, I think, of the COVID impacts that we had talked about. A lot of these are people that are staying year-round as opposed to seasonally in the area. And you can see now that they're getting their septic systems serviced more and they're becoming, we'll far exceed that line item if we continue with this pace, and we're not even in the busy part of the year yet.
That's good.
Right.
Pump outs and, so that number should come in significantly above budget.
Right.
Current water and sewer charges also are both above the 50% mark, which we typically wouldn't see because we have the increases in the back half of the year.
Mhm.
So with both of those being over 50%, my projection is that we will far exceed our budget for current water and sewer usage.
Good.
See their revenue.
Exceed our revenue is what you meant, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Revenue expectations. Yeah.
There's some offset, obviously, because we have higher costs for operations. Obviously, if you guys know, if we're treating more sewage, we're going to have a somewhat higher cost. But I think overall, it's going to come in very positive.
In the black. Okay. That way. All right. Did you have any other questions, Wade, since you started?
Not on that. No, I don't think. No.
Hey, Jigs, did you have anything?
I do.
I know you do. Okay, go ahead.
First, my first item is on page 3.
Okay.
The phone system, as you can see, we exceeded our annual budget in the first 6 months.
Yeah.
I've been asking for, I know we got a comment about they were going to give out a couple more cell phones, and that's going to take
So
care of our phone system. But what I'm looking for is what is that line going to look like at the end of the year?
So that line will be over. We are compensating with other line items to make sure that we come in overall under budget. We've been aware of this issue since the beginning. We are porting our lines and migrating from Mitel to Crescendo, which is an extension of our US Cellular contract. And so we will see significant savings going forward, but we're in the process of that implementation. But again, we are well aware of the overage for this line item, and we intend on making up the difference in other line items.
Yeah,
So Mitel, Jigs, Mitel will cease in March. So we'll start to see the lower monthly rates because we'll have less phones and less monthly charges. Right now, I'm in a parallel situation, so it's going to be over, but we'll project it out for you as to what we're going to look at for the year so that you can see what that impact's going to be.
right. And I'd like to, I'd like to get a feel for what the annual, well, we'll do it in budget season, what the projected annual expense is going to be for the next fiscal year.
For the new, yes, we will have that and make sure that we highlight that in the budget conversation as well.
Okay.
Okay, great.
All right. My second item, I brought this up before. I don't want to belabor it, but on page 5, under the police department,
Yep.
the full-time officer account,
Police or fire? 'Cause I'm
Police,
looking-
Police.
police are,
Police, bottom of the page.
bottom of the page,
oh, very bottom, yeah.
Yep.
the 4th line up from the bottom,
Thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
is the full-time officers, which we're at 52% of budget. We, for the entire 6 months, we were 1 officer short. And I know we had those merit increases that were given out. That would be a partial offset. The new officer that was let go, I don't know when he was let go, whether it was in December or January, but there would be some costs there. But the question is that how do we get to 52%
Yeah.
of the budget if unless we made a mistake in adding up what 6 officers were going to cost us? So
All right, well, I think what we can do is I'll sit down with Shannon. We'll go back through our payrolls to see if there's an overlap or some kind of, some of it could be related to when an officer does leave, there is some accumulated time that they're paid, and it might have
Right.
been paid against this, so that'll be part of that. But we'll do that analysis for you, and then we'll share it with you at your next meeting.
Okay.
okay, thank you.
Yep.
The next item is on the top of page 4.
Oh, yep.
We have a new category called part-time clerk dispatch wages.
Page 4.
Part-time clerk.
What
First
page?
item on the list.
Page 4.
Page 4, but I have public officials being the top of the page.
I
that
think it's
page.
6, maybe, if you turn it over.
Maybe it's not 4. 6 jigs.
It's 6, I'm sorry.
Okay, that
Yep,
makes
gotcha
sense
now.
now. Yep.
Yes,
Yep.
okay.
Sorry.
we're with you. No
Yeah, what is
Uh,
that?
So we never knew we had one, but
Oh, it's- yeah.
so what's that?
What is that?
I'm sorry, I'm trying to find where you're at.
So it's page 6, top of the,
Very first line, page 6.
right.
Oh, that should just go to full-time
Dispatch.
dispatch wages. Yep,
So you need to move that one, right?
Is that a line item? Could we-
absolutely.
Zero that out, Shannon, and move it all to full-time, so there's no,
Yeah, I'll inactivate that account.
because we didn't budget for it, so it obviously must
Right.
just be
No,
something.
it's full-time wages. So Renee, who fills that position currently was part-time at one point, not this go around. So just misallocation. So I'll move it and I'll disable that account.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And the last one on this budget is the further down page 6 under police equipment. The last item on the list is called police vehicles. For $2,933.
Yeah, what's that?
So we could potentially move that up to the vehicle maintenance. So a couple of the seats and a number of other things were just completely torn apart that we had repaired. So we did not do the whole car. So we left the front seats the way they were, the rear seats. There was just some vehicle maintenance that had to take place. So that just might have been a miscoding error, but that's just vehicle maintenance.
It is vehicle maintenance, okay.
We can move that so it shows.
Okay, so that would be vehicle maintenance, which that'll be like 70-80% of
Right.
budget.
Yep, and so most of the departments, if it's uniforms or maintenance or things like that, at this point in the year, we're wrapping it up.
Hey,
They were significantly under on gas, which is kind of interesting.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, could be food
Well,
patrol.
prices were really low for a while, so I'm sure we're gonna make up for that now.
Yeah, $1.20 less, below $1.20. So, yep.
Hmm,
Anything else, Jigs?
That was it for the general fund.
okay.
Anyone else? Then before you move on to water or wastewater, anyone else have anything in general fund?
I do.
Go ahead.
I just had one question on the fire department.
Which,
So
which
page
page are you
I'm
on?
sorry.
4,
I don't know what page is it.
page 4, I think.
Page 4 of 16.
Okay.
Yep.
Special coverage. What is special coverage?
So there's two different things. They have normal calls in, and then they have special coverage. And so depending on what people respond to, it's allocated differently. We could get Chief McGinnis to write you something up that could explain it better.
Yeah, I was just curious. I
good. Yeah.
wasn't familiar with what that was.
If I recall,
Or if I am, I don't
yeah,
remember it.
if I recall correctly, that may be something like, for example, let's say they have just for example, a training night scheduled out of the ordinary for something special on, say, a Wednesday night. Then they may have another department come in, and there's an arrangement.
So it's not related to training, it's related to calls. So I think, and don't quote me, but I think what it is call firefighters, the regular line is within the village and the special coverage is outside of the village.
Okay, I think it would be a good idea if we did get Sean to give us a write-up explanation of what that's
Clarification, yeah.
covering.
Yep.
That'd be great.
Absolutely, yep.
Thank you. Did you have anything else, Wade? On that?
No.
I thought did you have something?
No,
I just want to make sure, Jeff. I had a concern about, where was it? Not that. Of course, I'm still concerned about on page 5 of 16, that the overtime will be about $30,000 if I approximate it. It doesn't work out like that, I know. But an estimate of $30,000 over budget. Based upon current numbers, and as Jig said, with one officer down for all those 6 months, why we're at 52% is concerning. I don't exactly expect, there's nothing you can do about that. It's not a question per se.
Well, hopefully
Yeah,
we'll-
so our expectation is, and as the financials show, we will far exceed savings in the benefits line.
Okay.
This is
So-
this is also one of the areas from the Elger grant that will also have a reimbursement because of expenditures that were COVID related that
Mhm.
did not get coded back. So there will be some monies that will go to offset some of that. So I think you'll see a lessening of that
Okay.
impact when Shannon and I
That'd be good.
allocate that.
And on the general budget, the last part I had was the capital and equipment fund, which is on page 8. I just wanted to be sure that the new equipment policing 723142 was the Axon vehicle cameras. Is it? Or is it something else? I guess I'm asking Shannon.
I'm sorry, which line again?
On page 8, which is of 16, the capital and equipment fund, that's $7,200 for new equipment in police. Is that the Axon cameras?
It is, and that is fully 100% reimbursed through the grant. So that's part of that entry.
Okay, great. Okay, so now we can move on to water fund or wastewater.
Okay.
You guys have anything? I think Jigs did.
On the water fund, it was, Scott has already addressed it. My question was the Northwest Minister budget of 23,000 with nothing having been received. So,
Okay.
uh,
Okay, so I do have a question in water, and the cell on page 9 of 16, the cell tower lease is only at 26.56% paid. And since we're 6 months through the year, why have we not received the second payment?
They
They are-
can't, oh, sorry, go ahead, Scott.
Well, that's the one that they're going to be decommissioning. They did approach back in the fall, they approached us about
Yeah.
them not using that site. And so
Really?
they're actively decommissioning. I asked them to hold off, and we've asked some of the businesses and other people if they have some interest before we have that site basically they would take down the existing tower, take down all the infrastructure, and return it back to, its previous condition. So
Right, but I didn't understand when the payments stop. There will be no more payments. Is that what you're saying?
I'll
That is
check to see.
correct. They canceled their contract within their limits and there will not be any additional payments made.
I think they contact back in October, Shannon. I don't remember the exact of when we got that notification. I met with them like in December out on the site. So
Really?
yeah,
But so as far as the water fund goes, they receive that revenue and then they transfer it to the general fund. So it's a wash for the water fund. Whatever they receive, they'll transfer to the general fund. So it won't affect the bottom or top line.
obviously it'll come out of our budget for,
Yeah, it'll affect our revenue, but
yes, it'll affect the revenue for this year and next year. So that's something that we'll have to keep an eye on as
Yep.
well.
Yep. Okay, I'm done with water. Anyone else? Okay, you have something in wastewater? Jigs?
yeah, in wastewater, of course, the sewer use from Westminster was the big issue, but again, that's been addressed and it sounds like we've received half of the payment.
Correct.
The one, on the salary account, again, I think most of that staff got a merit increase, but the pump station, the overtime, they're at 55% for the year. I think, we've talked about the overtime there and some of the problems at the plant, and we're still waiting to hear more on that. But
Yeah, the other thing to consider this budget cycle is that people have the ability to cash out time. And the way we've currently been budgeting is 2,080 hours times their salary, right across the line. And so when we have situations where people want to cash out comp time or things of that nature, they can, and we don't account for it. So when
so
you have,
we will pay them for comp time. Is that how it works?
of course.
Yeah, it's a contract item. It's in their current.
Oh, I know.
agreement.
I know that it's good for it, but they can take it either in not coming to work or cash.
Correct.
Correct, as union employees, non-union cannot.
Right. Okay.
And also, since we signed the contract, the local 98, that goes back to effective July 1st of 2020, yes?
Correct. So you do not see those in here though. I did the pay increases and the retro as of the beginning of January.
Okay.
We'll keep an eye.
On page 14, 3/4 of the way down, the sludge removal, obviously, because of our increase in revenue, obviously we're going to get an increase in that line as well. But based on the dryer being installed, are we to expect that line's not going to move anymore?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
We received the last billings for that line.
Okay.
Can I
Yeah.
go back to a question about comp time?
Yeah.
I'm just not familiar with how significant a cost that is. Is that something that we budget for based upon an annual average, or is it something that we could or should?
So how comp time works is they can either get paid out in overtime in the pay period in which they work,
Mhm.
or they can bank it in comp time. Everyone can only, I'm talking about union now, they
Right.
can accumulate 80 hours and they can use that the same as they do vacation, or they can ask for a check for 20, 40, 50, 80 hours, whatever they want to do to cash out.
Right.
Prior practice for budgeting is literally taking the penny for penny and dragging it across. So I would encourage the board this budget year to reevaluate and look at that and include some kind of payouts for.
Yeah, I guess my question is, are we talking about $5,000 or are we talking about $25,000?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I anticipate that salaries and wages will level out. We will not go over. And if we do, it'll be by hundreds of dollars. So I just think we need to think about the next calendar year and make a projection and add it into the line item. But we will do everything that we can to keep this budget.
Yeah, that's the purpose of my question.
Yeah,
It's
we'll
just
look at,
to
we'll take a look at
in the-
accrued,
in the
some
next
accrued
year.
liabilities, because the other thing we try to take a look at is employees in terms of where they are by years of service and potential retirement eligibility.
Right.
Sure.
And that obviously impacts that line.
Yep.
Much more than the comp time, which sort of varies year to year. But
Yeah.
we'll take a hard look at that, and if we have a recommendation, I think we'll highlight it in the budget discussion as we go forward.
The other thing that I've done in previous, with my previous employers is having a line within each department. Because for instance, if you look at like dispatch, so it was in this fiscal year that we let go of a dispatcher. We paid them out everything that they were due. We hired a new one. And in the interim, we brought in the dispatch that we paid an abundance of money to. So just to consider, it doesn't have to be line item by line item. It can be a single line item that just is for things of that nature, because we have turnover and we don't account for it in our budgets. And for the town, where the town budget is significantly more, we make up for that. But with your village budget being so tight, we need to add something in for those turnovers.
Thank you, Shannon.
What I'd like to see in relation to that is, at the end of the, say at the end of the calendar year, what is the total number of comp time? It doesn't have to necessarily be for each employee, but just an aggregate number of the.
We can look at it.
billing.
Yeah,
How much of it is hanging over into
we'll
the
look
new
at the
year?
accrual
right?
and then
So-
be able to do some
So
large.
we can only union employees can only carry over 80 hours each.
Mhm.
Right.
Non-union 40. So there isn't anything significant, and most people cash out before the end of the year. So we
So
have
there-
it in our accrued payroll, which is within your financials, which you'll see is hundreds of dollars, not thousands, not tens of thousands. So it's relatively insignificant for the village because everyone's drained their comp bank prior to the fiscal year end.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Anything else, Jakes, on that?
On that budget? No, I think if I have a concern about, meeting the budget, having revenues equal expenses, it would be the wastewater at this point. But the kind of related to wastewater is, I wanted to call your attention to page under the balance sheets, page 1 of 2 for wastewater. It's at the very end of the package.
Yep.
Okay.
It says it's the item that says due to or due from other
yeah.
funds. Okay. And, it seemed to me on the last budget, the last financial, it looked to me like that number had gone down to like minus 800 and something thousand.
Yes, I thought too.
But this, at 6 months, it's jumped up to $1,175,000. And I've mentioned this,
So
for as
you'll
long
have
as
to
I've been on the
forgive me,
board.
the auditors are in the middle of making entries, taking out entries, moving things. So the balance sheet numbers are not 100% accurate at this moment. They will be at the end of this month when they finish audit. However, these are just, we're in the middle of making entries and we have not made them all. So I would encourage you guys to just, wait and see. I do anticipate water and wastewater to come in under budget, and instead of taking from their fund balance, they will contribute to their fund balance, which will reduce this due to from. And we are on the right track now with the increases in rates for water and sewer. So going forward, we will not pull and add to the due to from, we will reduce it.
Well, I think that, the due from is basically, I look at it as a cash, the cash fund for each of these accounts. But clearly the wastewater has been in this deficit position for a couple of years. And I know the budget for this year showed our due from or due to going down. That means we were going to have a positive cash flow for the wastewater. But with some of these higher expenses and operational issues, I want to be sure that that's still the case. But
I'm not sure what you're speaking about, because the sludge dryer, which will reduce most of the expense on that end, was covered by a grant. And our anticipation, we were planning on adding to the fund balance, and I have no doubt we will far exceed that. So I'm just not sure what or where these concerns.
Well, my concern, Shannon, is when you look at the financial report that you prepared for us, and I see this negative number, and I see it growing, I'm concerned. And
that was something that prior boards did. And immediately when I got here, I corrected it to increase user fees for water and sewer. But as you were told, and as it was demonstrated in financial analysis, this is not something that is going to flip overnight. This is something that will take time. We were, for years prior to me being here, you guys were taking from fund balance to pay the expenses of this water and sewer. And so to align with that, we had major increases. We have distributed them every year. We're getting closer and closer to being a level funded like we should with our water and sewer funds. But this is not going to flip overnight. It's nothing that's going to happen overnight. This is going to be a 10-year process to get us to where we need to be. So it's, you guys didn't have water and sewer increases for a couple of years. You opted not to. And then,
you talk to the board like we've been on the board for 10 years. I mean, you got two people that have just been on the board for a couple of months. So
I'm not talking like that. I'm talking to you specifically, Jades. You were on the board when you elected not to do water and sewer increases. And now you speak at me as if it's my fault you're in the negative.
This is not your fault. It's not your fault at all.
Right. But we're doing everything that we can to fix it and alleviate the problem. And it's going to take years now to get back there.
Well, that's what I want to see. I want to see my financial officer show us a projection of how the wastewater fund is going to get back onto a positive cash flow basis.
I hired someone to do an entire financial analysis that was distributed to you and has been over the last 2 years. I will give it to you again. That will show you when you will be cash positive.
Right, Shannon, perhaps maybe maybe we're talking at each other and not to each other. Mm-hmm. We're going to meet with the auditors, Jigs, to go through some of their adjusting entries and also to talk about the longer term financial impacts of our debt schedule, as well as some of these lingering legacy costs. And I will get you an update as to our conversation with them. And I think it'll be in alignment with those longer term documents that Shannon was describing. But I'll make sure that the board is shared with that information so that everybody's on the same page.
I resent the implications that Shannon has made, Scott. Deborah,
yes,
and I and Stefan have been on the board. I've been on the board for going on 4 years. When I got on the board my first year, we all discovered that the $6 million of borrowing to pay for all of our sewer plant and water plant lines and those types of things were hitting our books.
Right.
And I believe I took a leadership role in recommending higher rates for both water and sewer. I never opposed rate increases when we knew what we were dealing with.
I'm not saying that, but the
Well,
budget.
you did say
No,
it.
the
You did.
budget
Ladies
that
and-
you
Excuse me,
the
point of
budget
order.
that you passed had revenue projected, not based on usage times rate, but based like the general village budget, in that you were projecting like a tax raising. So when you projected
That was done
920,
by the previous financial person. It wasn't done by the board.
but the budget's passed by the board.
Well, yes, because we were told that that's what we needed.
Right. So we're trying to clean up some of these legacy items because they are a concern. I agree with you, Jigs, that we have to present to the board a longer term idea of how we're going to continue to drive down those numbers, which we've started to do. And I think that that's been a positive. Once those issues have come to light, I think a lot of positive things have taken place to help us get an improved condition. And I think we've got to make sure that we continue that to go forward. And that's part of our conversation with the auditor. And
No,
I've definitely make sure that
I
we-
agree with you, Scott. I was just saying, we had an RCAP study done to tell the boards, because of all of this mess, exactly what rates needed to be implemented in what years. And we gave them options A, B, C, D, E. And if they chose this option, it was going, we'd be cash positive in this year. If we chose this option, we'd be cash positive in this year. I'm sure Deb remembers, we chose option B. And so with our wastewater, they know exactly the date that we will become level set. So we keep reiterating and having this conversation, but we as a new management have done everything that we can to try and make us whole again and to get back on track.
Right. So, and I think it's just,
Yeah.
I think it's probably incumbent upon all of us to continue to just reiterate where we are, where we're trying to head. And if we're having, if we're not meeting expectation, then I think we have to sit down and come back to the board with what our challenges are. So I think that's probably a good place to try to leave
We
that.
understand that there's a level of frustration and impatience to get level fund, to get rid of the debt.
Yes.
We don't want it any longer. And the numbers we got from the CAP company are static. Things change, and what we're looking at is, as each year goes by, we'll say, how closer are we to that? Is there anything else with changing to the dryer program, reducing costs in other areas? Will we get there any faster? We have impacted our community significantly when we raised our rates by 30%. That was a significant jump.
Yes.
And that would never have happened if it wasn't for being ill-advised by previous administrations when those bonds were taken out by the public. So the boards were not aware of how little they were doing to help ameliorate the problem of the bonds when we actually got to having to pay them. So now this board in the last couple of years got saddled with having to deal with some very hard facts. We've had to pass those hard facts along to our users in the form of increases. And we are as impatient as we can, we are trying to be as patient as possible, but it comes up every so often that we want to see how much more time and what else we can do to reduce that debt.
Okay.
Yeah, we're
So that's all.
exactly on,
Frustrating.
we're exactly on track with the RCAP report, if not slightly ahead, because the user rate has increased, but we are right where that RCAP projected.
Okay. We'll
Okay,
make sure we
I
follow
think
up
we've
on that.
covered this subject quite a bit. Jigs, did you have anything else?
No, that's it.
Okay. Anyone else on the board have anything else on the financials?
I'm all set.
All set?
No, we're good.
Okay, good.
You outlined it pretty well, I believe.
All right. Then we move on to review agenda items for the next meeting. I don't know if we have anything immediately at this point. to add?
I'd like to get an update on the wastewater treatment plant operations. And also the dryer.
Yep.
How that's going and
Performance, yep.
What our plan is to get ready to make a decision whether we're going to buy this baby or not. That analysis needs to be done, and again, we're going to rely on Shannon to do it. So.
Yep, we'll give you an operational update as well as we'll start setting some target dates on, I think
We're
we're
gonna
at our
want that
3-month
for the budget.
period now. We
Yeah,
had a
we're gonna need it for
9-month
budget, yeah.
window, so I think it's probably a good time to do an update at the 3-month. We'll give you
Yep.
a real good idea at the 6-month, and then we obviously have a real decision to make at the 9-month point,
Right.
which will be part of our budget as well, so.
Okay, anything else? I don't think anyone has any burning item that needs to go on at this point. No
No.
one, I don't hear anything.
You have an executive session you mentioned.
And yeah, that's coming up, but
Right.
so if you any trustees have any items for the agenda for in the next 2 weeks, which is February 9th, please give me a shout. Or let them know. Let Shannon know. Review agenda items for the joint board meeting. Again, I think that's to be determined. I don't even know when the next one is.
Yeah, we
April?
haven't scheduled yet.
Yeah, not scheduled yet. So,
Nope.
And we don't have the orders, bills, and warrants. I don't think we had in the last meeting either.
Scott has them.
Scott, you have those.
I'll have to bring him back down.
It's his fault.
It's my fault. I got sidetracked, and so yes.
We're gonna have quite a few to review next meeting then.
Yes.
Okay, not here. All right.
Well, we do get them by email, so I know I go through them and.
We do, but technically we're supposed to put all of our signatures on it after,
I know.
I hear you.
That's the point.
That's a me bad.
Okay, other business. Scott, do you have anything else?
No.
Steph?
Not at this time.
I'm all set.
Jiggs, do you have anything else for other business?
I get my first shot Thursday.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
Hooray for you.
Praise the Lord.
One
And
down.
pass the ammunition.
That's good to hear, though. Sounds like we're making progress.
It good.
I'm
Yeah,
very
I knew
encouraged to
that they
hear
had opened. They said 20,000 people had contacted them. Yeah, in the first day for the 75 plus
Well, that's
Yep.
tremendous. I'm
shot
glad.
rule. So
The more we get through this, the better.
yeah,
So-
and we'll watch you very closely to see how you're doing after that, Jigs. Okay.
Well,
I encourage everybody to take the shot. I'll tell you.
And then you have to have another one, right? About a
Yes.
couple later, something like that.
3 weeks later.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And I don't have anything else I can think of at the moment, although it's snowing out, so be careful. We do have need for a short executive session in which there will not be any action taken. Let's see. So would you like to do the honors?
Sure.
For the contract, since we need
Yep.
both motions. We need 2 motions for this.
Yeah, I'm going to make a motion if you're ready.
Yep.
Okay. That the trustees enter into an executive session to discuss the
8, I guess.
labor relations agreements with employees where premature general public knowledge would clearly place a municipality or person involved at a substantial disadvantage. And are we going to invite
And
anybody
we
specific?
include the
And
manager.
invite
Yep.
the municipal manager, the village manager, into the executive session.
All right. Need a second? Okay. Seconded by Jeff. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Okay. And we need the second motion, please.
Okay, I move that the board enter into an executive session to discuss labor relations agreements with employees, i.e. contract under the provisions of Title I, Section 313A1 of the Vermont State Statutes.
Need a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. We are now in executive session. Thank you very much, everyone, for participating.
Should I call you, Deb?
Yes, go ahead and give my phone
Yeah.
a call. And I will, and